manipulate the environment so much so that if you refuse to adapt, you become less and you become a minority. You become less and less. In other words, you will eventually die off. What do you think the devil wants to do? He wants to eliminate the people of God. He wants them to die off so that they become extinct. And so we're going to see how he does these. Let's go ahead and look at these 7 spells. So spell number 1 was what? Transformism. Transformism. Spell number 2. How many of you ever heard of a man by the name of, by the way, do you know that in 1 Samuel 15:23, when the Bible says rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft? Do you know the word there for witchcraft is actually translated, or it actually means an incantation? You know what an incantation is? What is an incantation? It's not only a spell, it's a spell that is sung. Ooh. It is a spell that is sung. Incantation. The word chant. When you chant, you're singing, you're chanting. Incantation is a spell that is sung. I want you to keep that in mind, because the devil has a song. And it's amazing that the world is beginning to sing his song, and the church is beginning to sing his song. You know, I remember, how many of you ever read, and I wish I had it with me, Ellen White says, she was in vision, she says, in vision I saw a train. You saw it? And on this train, it seemed like the whole world was on the train. She said, I saw the conductor. He looked like a stately man, a fair man. And I asked my attending angel, who is this man? And she said, I believe she said it was the devil. Am I right? It was the devil. And then the next, it was his highest in command, etc. And I thought, and she said, these are souls headed to perdition. And I thought to myself, and I said, the soul train. I thought, Lord, have mercy. The devil is mocking the soul. The soul train. Lord, have mercy. Let me tell you, beloved, the devil knows what he's doing. But anyway, so this second spell, anybody ever heard of a man by the name of Voltaire? You've heard of Voltaire because you read about him in Great Controversy. You may have read about him in history. He was another product of the French Revolution. Voltaire was a man that was vehemently against the 2 witnesses. And Voltaire began to attack the Bible, but Voltaire found a new weapon. See, Voltaire was a playwright. He wrote plays. And what Voltaire decided to do, what Voltaire said, if I take the theater and begin to mock Christianity through the theater, I will have a stronger effect than if I were to just stand up on the street and say, oh, Christianity is a bunch of foolishness. And so Voltaire was the man that coined, we might say, the use of the media to mock Christianity. Skepticism, sarcasm. And I would ask that as we look around our society today, do we see the media in full throttle making fun, mocking, being sarcastic of Christianity? The elements of that, the fruit of that, beloved, sprung out of the French Revolution. You don't take the cross seriously, do you? You see that? You don't take the cross seriously, do you? Evolution says we're going to get rid of people's desires to be drawn by Christ. We're going to draw them away. And now we're going to make fun of them. So if you are a Christian, then society actually looks at you as silly and foolish, largely because of what the media has done. So Jesus says, an eye if I be lifted up will do what? Draw all men unto me. But the devil says, man, if I can manipulate the atmosphere so that it becomes foolish, ridiculous, funny, to actually call yourself a Christian, then I will draw men away from the cross. You see? Okay, so that's spell number 2. The spell of sarcasm or skepticism. But then there was another spell that rose out of the abyss. And this spell, how many of you ever heard of a man by the name of Marquis de Sade? Marquis de Sade. Ever heard of Marquis de Sade? Marquis de Sade was another product of the French Revolution. Marquis de Sade is known as the prophet of modern pornography. Now, this is quite amazing because what happened during the French Revolution is that the people began to use this new weapon that they called political pornography. And what they would do is they would draw pictures of the king and the queen and the clergyman and all kinds of, excuse me, in all kinds of illicit acts that would bring them down in the eyes of society. And so this began, people look, is this what the king is all about? Is this what look at these clergymen, they profess to be serving God, and look at what they're doing. And this weapon was one of the effective tools used to bring about the downfall of the clergy during the French Revolution. Well, after this had passed and there was no more need, as it were, for political pornography, Marquis de Sade took this weapon called political pornography and turned it into a public thing. And when Marquis de Sade began, now by the way, I won't tell you the name of the book, but do you know that Marquis de Sade actually wrote a book called Something Something Days of Sodom? Now, somebody say it. Now you know it. It's amazing that Marquis de Sade did not realize that Revelation chapter 11 and verse 7 actually described that very power as both Egypt and Sodom. So here you have this man, Marquis de Sade, and he begins to say, he's writing, in other words, Marquis de Sade was the first man to make it appear that any kind of sexual act or behavior was acceptable in society. Do you know that France, during the French Revolution, became the first nation? Let me read it here. In the aftermath of the French Revolution, this is 1791, and under the influence of the humanism of the French Enlightenment philosophy, France became the first modern Western nation to decriminalize pederasty or unnatural acts in the year 1791. France became the first nation to decriminalize homosexuality. Okay, now you don't catch that. Let me tell you why you don't catch that. Revelation 11:7 describes a place as both Egypt and Sodom. What crime was Sodom mostly destroyed for? Homosexuality. In 1791, this beast from the abyss, the French Revolution, says, oh, by the way, homosexuality, nothing wrong with it. Now, I'm not saying it was correct to outlaw the thing in the first place, but I'm not getting into all that. But what I'm saying is that the act is significant because it fulfills Bible prophecy. So now, amazingly enough, as we walk around in today's society and we hear, well, listen, if the guy wants to be with his animal, there's nothing wrong. Who are you to judge? You see, once the devil began to manipulate the atmosphere, now, if you say something, well, what's the matter with you? Why are you so straight-laced? And why manipulation of the environment? To now, where anything is acceptable, and as we go into our stores today and we see pornography all over the place, beloved, understand that this thing, the way that it is today, the transition came through the French Revolution. Isn't that amazing? All this points right back to the French Revolution. So let's move on to spell number what? Spell number 4. Okay, very good. By the way, spell number... guys, stop arguing. We're in church. No, just playing. Let me mention, I'm going to stick on 3. We're on 3. I'm going to stick on 3 for a minute. You did not know this, but I'm going to read it to you. Did you know that Darwin had a theory? It was called Darwin's theory of sexual selection. Let me read to you what his theory says. Sexual selection depends on the success of certain individuals over others of the same sex in relation to the propagation of the species. In other words, what he's saying here is that the only reason man exists is to mate. Let me read something else to you then. My object is solely to show that there is no fundamental difference between man